Not just that. Oh my God, that is just the beginning. Now that it's warmed up, we gotta keep working on the car. We got all the new Earls, oil coolers and everything that really are gonna help this thing handle itself at temperatures starting to get really hot. It is alive and oh my God, it sounds good. So one last little quick run now that it's roughly in the right place. I'm not gonna boost it, but it's alive. So I get power steering and let's do another really good run. You hear that thing? Oh my God. But that engine is on point. That motor I've machined from this machine off of bullshit numbers in my head and just hoping that it would all work and tapping it. And the engine's all built and clearanced by me. Like, how? We're skipping through a lot of the steps, but we're plugging some exhaust leaks, working over a lot of things, getting the steering really cleaned up. But right now, we've connected the main tank back to the surge tank, and the guys are filling it up. No, that's not VP, and no, it's not C16. It's not either of those. We just went to get E85, the cheap stuff, from a gas station. For street tuning and everything, even as long as it's over E50, things are good. To tune the amount of timing that you're gonna adjust doesn't really change above that. We're gonna test to see if the main tank can fill that little surge tank, because we keep running out of fuel in the surge tank. If you guys wanna see something really quick, look at my nipples, it's getting cold. No, just kidding. It's the shirt. You'll see here, this is not the stock shirt. This is actually a prototype, and it's got those iron-ons and whatnot, and a lot of companies will sell you shirts like this. I can't stand that. So this was just a prototype to show off what the shirt would look like. You guys know that if you have these clothes, they're much nicer, and they're screen printed. Big difference in quality. With that out of the way, it is time to fire up the 3-rotor really solid. All the exhaust leaks are fully plugged, and it's time to do the base map. We all love building, but driving it's way more fun. Man, you can hear the brapping happening. I'm holding the pedal, but oh my God, such a different sound with the semi-peripheral. But I'm gonna lower it down a little bit. So there's a sweet spot, and we'll get that idle right, but it's closer to about 1600 RPM. But you hear that, we'll get that tuning right, and oh my God. I couldn't hear it from in the car because we've been getting better and better at squashing all the exhaust leaks, but there was a massive intake leak. Even then, it sounded good, but you can probably hear it on the camera. I couldn't hear it in the car, and so the guys let me know that, hey, there's air. And what's going on is we're adapting an FD, an RX-7 throttle body to a Cosmo 3-rotor intake manifold, and they don't exactly line up. There was a reason why we had a little adapter in there, even though the adapter was leaking as well. We're gonna figure that intake leak out, so we're gonna get even cleaner idle. Out of the way for a moment. You can see it really needed this gasket maker because the sander does not do it level, does not do it even. We're gonna do some field surgery. So we figured out two things at once. That's the air bleeder valve, which is meant to kind of help control idle from the bottom right there. That was what's leaking from the 20B manifold backwards and up into this. So I was gonna weld this, that's what I got ready to do, but that's not gonna be good to weld because then we lose one more control on idle. Well, this plate was so warped, it took me some time to really flatten it out, sanded it down, so that way both sides were all completely flat. So you actually can hear this.
Nice.
Yeah. Go ahead, plop that back on there. We've got no leaks. Let's see if it sounds any more crisp. Sounds so much much better. Listen to this. Right off. We haven't even adjusted any of those settings, but you can hear that rap. And on top of that, I'm giving it a little bit of pedal. We have to tune that little idle adjustment valve now that air is finally figured out. But oh my God. That at the top was 5,000 RPM. Everything's at about 0.86 to 0.83 lambda, aka it's right where it should be. She sounds good. That's just baby revs. I'm not even giving it full throttle or anything. It's finally daylight, even though we have the really nice camera, and we're gonna finish what we started. I just did some fine tuning from the previous session, and we just need to make a nice little pass, little baby 0 pounds of boost pass. She is sounding so wild. Everything looks good. So I'm just gonna do a quick pass, just shift gear, nice and polite, and then maybe 2 or 3, speed it up, speed it up. Oh my God, just that. I can't, I'm not an engine, I can't make that noise. This is perfect. So what you hear here, that is 0.77 PSI, 0 pounds of boost. That's the way I look at it. I see a 0, I call it a 0. It did get a little froggy. It was just over 1 lambda, which is a little lean. Now I'm gonna work on the boring part, which is getting the base map this way, the base map up and testing it. But I'm in love. My God, is this car looking so professional except for that. This is probably one of my most iconic pieces of work ever. I'm proud of this. It has always worked, it still works. It's the headlights, turn signals, and pop-up lights. Joel, the camera guy, and I talked off camera, and he gave me words of encouragement for what I'm about to do, but this is basically, I'm going to make a little tourniquet. I just want to say, guys, I just want to say that I've replaced all my other wiring. I'm a good man, okay? This is the last of my wiring.
It's okay. It's all your wiring.
Yeah. You want to hurry? I'm gonna need a support kitten in a second. I'm gonna clean up those relays and move them back here. But B, I'm just getting rid of it. I'm gonna make a connector somewhere back there and make a whole new harness and cover it in heat shrink so we don't even notice it, but it really is doing the same thing. Easy enough. Whatever. We don't even need to film this. It's not even no, we don't.
Yeah.
It's boring. This is boring.
Just do it.
Yeah. No. You know what I'm thinking though is there might be better tools to cut this.
No. Chris, you got your knife?
No. I'll do it.
Just commit.
My wrist. My wrist.
Andrew, you want to help him? I think
no, I got it. Okay. Okay, fine. Turn the camera up. Why did I put one on the outer edge right there instead of the one that's with the brass fitting? Well, it's finally time to go hard lines. The problem is this is down where the oil fittings are, all the coolant lines are, they're all right there. This, on the other hand, has a nice little hook over and out like that. This is all for the wastegate line. I'm finally using compression fittings, hard lines, to make this work. And I really wanted to do this. They're also kind of cheap. I shouldn't say cheap. They're just not as expensive as some of the other things. 1/8 inch MPT welded on there. That will go something like this. It'll then be cut down so that way it sits over on an angle like that, away from the lower intake manifold, but also puts us in a really good spot. So let's see what happens when it's over here. Imagine that's on there. I don't want to hurt the compressor doing this, but imagine that's right there. This piece then allows us to go over here, and that little T runs a line up and over to my little wastegate solenoid. That is then going to have another line come back out the other side, drop back down, and then those two lines will now run all the way over to the tile 60mm wastegate down here in the bottom. So the concept here is really straightforward. I'm sure many of you already know this, but the compression fitting is really this little compression ring here getting trapped underneath this right here. It's kind of like a really bad AN fitting, is that it crushes this onto here, creating the airtight fit. You have to have this on before the compression fitting, like that. And then you put all of that in here. And because this is soft brass, you're just basically compressing the brass to kind of make it airtight fitting. I made this the right length so that way it sits right here with, you know, finger width gap between the turbo and that. So you can see nothing there. We'll just begin the compression. And you can already see, I'm just gonna do just a little bit more. And that line got really tight. That's the good and downside to this, is that the line is not rotating, so you really have to think ahead. I spent a lot of time with this right here getting the first part of that figured out. But we're gonna go ahead and put it on the car, see if this makes sense. Very carefully, not hit the compressor wheel.
Pro.
Yeah. All right, here's the raw aluminum tube that we're using. Aluminum works fine in this case because we're close but not directly connected to heat. I think this will be like 400 degrees, and that's the same thing as PTFE, so I'm not too worried. So this aluminum hose is actually gonna go down into that little splitter that I have. Going back to this, we've got the bottom half done. Now we're ready for the top part. There are multiple ways to do wastegates, and my favorite way is this, is that the side line that gets pressure, so say you want 12 PSI spring, and say there's a 12 PSI spring in the wastegate, you run boost right into the side, leave the top of the wastegate vented to the world, and when that hits 12 PSI, it has enough pressure to pull the spring up. What we're doing is feeding that line directly, same thing, but then we're actually putting air into the top side and be like, whoa, no, there's no 12 PSI here. Both sides are equal, don't move the wastegate. So that's why we need two lines going back to the back of the engine. I'm just bending this by hand because I can feel it'll collapse, and we don't have a mandrel, which is basically putting something inside of it to prevent it from collapsing. So I'm just bending it how it wants to be bent. So we now have this piece cut up, ready for coming from the part we just made down there. And we know that this fitting's got to go right here. I'm gonna cut it to right there. That's pretty damn close. I'll take it down even more. You want to try and keep that vertical run as vertical as possible. And there we are. You can see a nice little zigzag, and then that sends us another line right here that we'll try and mimic identical to this one back down, and then those two both curve, go over to the back. I'll show you one of the best features. It seems like it's the worst part of it, but it's the fact that they are removable. I'm sure you threaten the structure a little bit, but you can see that the compression fitting's done. It is on there, it's stuck, and these can kind of come off, so it's kind of a semi-reusable setup. You guys are seeing final steps of all of the wastegate control. Really the cleanest thing I've ever done. Turbo air in, solenoid dotting little bits of extra air to the top of this to keep it shut. The wastegate main line is this one closer to the exhaust. Put a little bit of gasket gray stuff underneath this, only on one side, just to accommodate for any sort of extra roughness that I did while I was cleaning this thing up. I took it down with my hand, blocking it, really getting it as precision ground as possible. The leaks are my biggest fear. With both the wastegate lines that we just showed you all about, and then also between shots, I ran the back pressure sensor. This is all just hidden in there. The only thing that you know is we chose to put this up here is the wastegate solenoid. I just didn't want it near the heat. That's it. That's all of that tightened and cleaned up. God, I don't even recognize myself. We're going to continue putting the thing back together. No more air leaks, and we can start making some serious power. Upper intake manifold right there. So we're finally getting the car tuned. I'm holding on the pedal this whole time, but now I don't have to hold the pedal as much. The thing I'm learning very quickly on this car, she loves a lot of air. This is being such a non-OEM setup, we ran out of ability to tune the semi-PP to idle with the stock setup, which kind of makes sense. I guess honestly it makes sense, but I was really hoping. So we've opened up almost all of those things, so we're on the last line of defense, which is actually just pulling the throttle cable back. By default, it has to have the throttle open a percentage, so that's my current next best thing. That's at 3,000, and now I can... 1750 right now, it seems to be like a healthy base point. I used to have it at 900, so I'm a little jealous of not being able to get lower, but you can hear the brapping, and it just sounds right. So 1750 seems to be in a good place. I'm going to tighten those up. That blow off valve. Oh, I can feel it. She's getting there. Idling's a little bit of a difficulty for me just because of how high it has to be. 1800. I've actually swapped the nut on this to the bottom side. We can still lock it in, but we don't need to use the cable. Raise the idle that much more. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it around the block. We got the fan working, as you can hear. So she's just more and more stable to where I can just walk away from the car idling like you would a normal car. That sounds really, really good, but of course I'm doing system checks. I'm checking everything out. We got a leak. I didn't put enough effort into tightening one of the oil fittings, so it's just dripping a little bit. But oh my God, what an aggressive sound. It is very loud. It is much louder than it used to be. Getting to 0.92 lambda when I was getting into it. So what I want is to actually look at the boost pattern, see where it's going, add some more fuel before I start actually jumping in. That was negative 0.8 PSI, almost 0 pounds of boost. We're just starting to get into it and it's getting lean. So I added some fuel to that part of the map and we're finally gonna go and crest into positive boost. Oh man, but we'll do the full proper like cleanup map on the dyno. I was like, man, the car's not boosting at all. Nobody fucking intercooler pipe popped off on one of the first runs. No joke, the car sounds good, but no balls whatsoever. The car was just very just anemic, and that's why.
Oh shit.
I was using the power. I was like, wait a second, that is not high enough. Oh my God, that is super, super sexual. That was, I'm gonna guess around 8 PSI, but you finally heard me getting into it. Like you can hear, there's distinctly an audible sound of like that last run where it's like, whoa, you hear it go into the 3-rotor noise. Under that, it sounds great too, but once it really got its legs, you're like, oh. So stopping it there, reviewing logs and everything like that, but we are this close to the dyno.